All right, morning everybody. I've got a shorter list than normal for you today, so plenty of time for your questions. First, updates on the network security incident. As we've mentioned for a little while now, we're going to go ahead and start the process of notifying our citizens and customers. They'll be getting letters in the mail for credit monitoring, very similar to the 2019 incident, really the exact same scenario. We still are in the same place. The question, if the question's asked of, what do we know now that we about what information's out there? We're in the exact same position we were before, which is we know that it's possible, but we do not have any confirmation of specific data from specific customer base or citizen base that is confirmed to have been leaked. But we'd rather be on the right side of caution here and make sure that, and as opposed to the opposite of that, which is telling people too late or when there starts to be issues. So we'd rather over notify, and in a normal setting, if we had full confirmation that let's say one specific department had one specific piece of information that was exposed, then we would have just notified people within that specific department or those customers that were affected in this process normally. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and notify everybody. And as I said, out of abundance of caution, I'd rather be wrong to have notified too many people and offered too much credit monitoring than the opposite. So that's the tack that we're going to take. But that is not because of any change of any new information that we have about what is or isn't out there. So the number is going to be 833-543-2815. It'll be through TransUnion and Monday through Friday from 8 to 8. So you can ask all the questions that you'd have there about getting it all set up. And again, that'll be, and everyone will be getting a letter through the U.S. mail as well. So those letters we expect to be hitting this week. Roger Scott, a couple updates on the pool. First, the demolition of the bathrooms at Roger Scott begins April 29th. We obviously are not going to finish those during pool season, but we wanted to go ahead and get started. So there will be, I would say, an improved situation of temporary restrooms of what was there last year significantly. But the goal will be to go ahead and get through this pool season, and then we're going to be ready to go to start construction on those pool bathrooms right after the pool season is over. So April 29th, again, is when the demo of the existing structure is set to begin. So we want to go ahead and get that out of the way before the pool season starts. Also, you'll see it was pulled last time, but we are making some adjustments with pool fees. Our agreement with YMCA is extended by a year. We added some elements in there to make sure that we have better understanding of dollar spend. And so I know YMCA is appreciative. We're appreciative of a little more clarity in our agreement for this 1 year moving forward, and looking forward to having them operate. But also, we're gonna do some fee adjustment. We're gonna do $3. I believe it's $4, $3 at Cecil Hunter, and $5, $4, and that's adult and children at Roger Scott, which is up $1 on each. But also, we're going to be offering a new scholarship program. So it'll work very similar to some of our other programs we have through Parks and Rec, free and reduced lunch, things like that. So we've got all the details that'll be, and those will be voted on here at the next council meeting in May. But looking forward to that, and again, looking forward to a great pool season and having YMCA operate those. And of course, we've got the new building at Cecil Hunter that's looking really good, and I know people are happy with. So it's about that time. Sidewalk project. City Council just approved phase 2 of that, and construction begins next week, April 22nd. And we're doing the northern side of Tahar Drive from O.J. Sims Elementary to Cortez Drive, and then going along the western side of Cortez from Tahar to 34th, and then the southern side of 34th to Cortez on 12th Avenue. So it'll be about 60 days to complete, depending on weather, as always. Mentioned to you guys that we're going to be holding the ribbon cutting at Bruce Beach at 9 a.m. on Saturday, April 27th. So looking forward to having the public get out there, and if you would like your child to be one of the first to play on the new playground, that's the day to be there, the 27th at 9 a.m. I know we were going to be doing a media sneak peek with you guys over there on the 23rd, depending on the weather, of course. And we'll hold this press conference on site there next week, so you guys can get some video and get an idea of what's going on over there. We're really excited to get that going. Smoke alarm Saturday, our next one is this Saturday in District 5, April 20th, and we'll have more details in the next couple days. One other thing was we're getting close on engaging a consultant for really the owner's rep side of the environmental and potential demo of Baptist Hospital. I mentioned to you guys we're on that same process I mentioned before, which is we're obviously waiting until July 1st to ensure that we're going to have that $7 million of funding from the state, but that we would tiptoe into getting some expertise on our side to make sure that we're not wasting time. And so we are in the final stages of that. I know we've gotten our information back from that consultant, and so it'll be really an owner's rep representing the city in terms of looking at the environmental information, looking at starting to piece together a potential RFP for some of the work that will need to take place post July 1. So again, we're not laying in wait. We're gonna use these 60 days to the best of our ability to put us in the best position, assuming that we're able to get the funding from the state and from Governor DeSantis on July 1st. And lastly, just want to thank, it is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. We have many amazing folks that are often forgotten when we talk about public safety, about our police, for our fire department, that help us and do a very, very, very difficult job to take these phone calls and at all hours, and to help our citizens through traumatic experiences in their life. So I just want to take time out and certainly thank them for everything that they do for us and everything police and fire do for us to make this a great city to live in. So I didn't want to go this week without mentioning that. So thank you to them. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
On the credit monitoring, how much is that costing the city?
I can get you a final total. We do have one step that was taken post 2019. Is we do have insurance that helps offset some of that cost. I'll have to get you exact details on that, but we do know that is part of what will help in this case compared to what happened last year, or excuse me, last incident, 2019.
Mayor, since the 2019 incident, the state of Florida passed a law that says you will not pay ransom for these ransomware attacks. So these things are really extortion events. And how do they end if you and your insurer are not allowed to pay ransom? How does it all end for the municipality?
Well, I haven't been at the end of one yet, so I can't tell you. But look, what I would tell you is my understanding is accurate to what you said, which is, and that's that is against the law, against rules in the state of Florida. So that is why those conversations immediately, as we've told you guys, have gone directly to FDLE and FBI, because that's not our purview. Ultimately, that becomes FDLE and FBI's purview. So how it ends, what I wouldn't even pretend to speculate or know what FDLE or FBI does in each of these instances from there. Certainly understand the question, but ultimately, I assume that's why that mechanism was put in place, is to then make sure that these decisions aren't being made at local or micro-local levels, but that expertise at the state ultimately that rule forces the state to be involved in that, which I think is a good thing. You've got a lot of expertise and a lot of resources there that may not exist at a city or a county level. So that's ultimately how our process played out, was the investigative side of things. All of the whatever potential conversation has gone directly to them. I have not been part of. I've not been consulted on, understandably, on any of the investigative side, the ransomware side. All of that kind of stuff has been left to the state and federal authorities.
In the 2019 event, according to the city records that you may have access to, Was a ransom paid by you or the insurance company, the city or the insurance company?
Not that, I don't know the answer to that, not that I'm aware of, but I haven't looked into that. As I said, it's not really been our, I mean, you've mentioned the state rule, so that's not really in our purview. It doesn't matter, what's been done before or what's been asked. I mean, it's irrelevant to me at the end of the day. It becomes a state and federal situation, which it did immediately here, and I'm letting them handle that.
Are all city services back up?
I'll have to confirm if every single piece of software is back up. I know one of the last ones that was customer facing was Rec Track, which was our Parks and Rec. I have not gotten an update that is fully operational yet. I know we were having to do some workarounds with some camp signups and things like that. And I heard we were still doing that. The golf course, some things like that are using some of that software. But in terms of once the bill pay was really the biggest one, that once we got that from a often used, common used customer facing side, that was the big one to get done. So I would venture, I'm going to speculate and say that we probably don't have everything fully up yet, every piece of software, but we're certainly trending in the right direction, continue to make progress there.
Mayor, I know you said you're basically sending out letters to everybody, more than probably what is affected. Do you have any kind of estimate on who might be affected at all?
Like total numbers or, yeah.
Or types of people, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I believe the total number is somewhere in the, I can get obviously we'll know what the total letters are going out are somewhere in the 60 to 70,000 range. Obviously a population of about 55, but of course Pensacola Energy has customers outside of the city limits. So there's other circumstances, former employees that may not, live here, that kind of stuff. So that's what grows that when someone says, well, wait, that's more people than that live in the city. There's other parts of that, but so we have a rough idea on number, but again, it's really us ultimately just saying, hey, just on the possibility that there's something out there, we're going to just go ahead and make sure everybody's got some protection for it.
Since you are doing it for everyone, how come it took, I don't mean it's
Yeah.
but like a whole month, since the attack?
Sure.
Why didn't y'all send it out kind of immediately afterwards?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into play on that. One is the investigative side. There's a certain burden that you're going to want to meet. We want to have a certain understanding that something was possible. You have to understand, this is about 2.5, 3 weeks earlier than we did in 2019 that we sent this out. Second to that is from an insurance standpoint, from an investigation standpoint, there are certain burdens that try to meet a definition of whether something is compromised or not. And so, we have to balance, to your point, why not send a letter out? There is a significant bandwidth, significant expense. We expect when we've been preparing for more phone calls to 311, right? Because you're going to get this letter in the mail, and we understand that may cause some anxiety. So there's a lot that goes into this. So that's why you don't want to just do it flippantly. You don't want to just say, well, just because let's send 70,000 letters to people when nothing may be out there at all, or may have been confirmed that nothing had gotten out. And we're kind of unfortunately in that middle ground, which is we can't confirm that anything specific has gotten out, but we can't confirm that open and shut, absolutely, there's no chance, right? And so it's really just about a matter of landing into that zone where we became comfortable to go ahead and do it. It wasn't, but a week before that or 2 weeks before that, we wouldn't have been able to answer that question the same way. And when you have insurance involved, that's helping cover some of those costs. They have questions about whether you're going to be able to send letters out or not based on the proof that you have. And so there's a lot of moving parts to it. That's probably the more simple way to say it. But I can say confidently we've moved as efficiently as we can, and that when we say we're doing this out of abundance of caution, it would be within our rights right now, I believe, to wait longer and see if it was a more refined group. But I'm not going to do that. I would rather people get a little more upset with me that they got a letter in the mail, but that nothing happened to their credit, or that their finances weren't impacted, than I would to wait too long and wish I would have sent something out sooner. So I'm confident that we are still overly cautious in this right now, and I certainly appreciate all the citizens, all the customers' patience with this.
Do you have any kind of timeline at all of when you might have a more refined number, or is it just, takes as long as the investigation?
Refined number of people that
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, we should have, I can get you an exact number. We should have, it's somewhere in that 60 to 70,000 range. Are you talking about how many letters are going out?
No, how many are actually affected?
Oh, yeah, yes, that's gonna, that process, will continue. There's a couple aspects to it. There's weeks of analysis that would have to be done basically in arrears to see what could or could not have been exposed. And then that becomes a whole nother discussion as you balance that with notifying, because there's an expense to notifying, but there's also a significant expense to finding a very refined exact group. So that's part of our decision-making process here too, is to say, well, it might just be easier to just notify everybody than to spend a lot of time and weeks of energy to get down to a smaller group, So again, it is a very complex situation. We don't like them complex. That's just how it's been delivered to us. And but we're again extremely confident that this is the best path forward. Let's notify people. Let's let them know that that we've got a protection for them in place, and not wait too long and wish we'd done something else.
Is there any update you can give us to the investigation?
No, and as a matter of fact, I just asked Chief Randall 30 minutes ago. So no update. FDLE, FBI continue to work on it. It doesn't mean that they're not, but no new leads, no new information. But I'm asking to at least be getting updates weekly on Mondays. So you guys can keep asking me, and I'll give you everything I know on Tuesday mornings every time I hear that. But to their credit, they have warned us from the beginning that these are things that take weeks and weeks of time. This is not something that we would expect to have a quick resolution to or constant information on.
Mayor, when I ask about the proposed RFP for a consultant on park recreation master plan needs assessment,
Okay.
Are you satisfied that this is going along at the speed that you would like in terms of the needs assessment, all of that will inform your master plan?
Are you talking about specific to Parks and Rec? Or are you talking?
Correct.
Okay.
We're discussing that up there
yeah.
right now.
Yeah. So if we're talking about the same thing, I want to make sure we are. But what's going forward to council is within an ARPA reallocation of the ARPA dollars is the about an estimated $100,000 of deferred maintenance. That's what I've been focused on, which is a study that would give us, instead of us guessing about which thing looks to be in the worst shape, which has kind of been our policy for a while around here. We're going to start to have something where we're going to have an outside expert come in and assess everything we own. And so we've got a list of everything we own. We can now take the next step and say, and we know that number is going to come back enormous, and we know that's a number that we're never going to have enough money in 1 year or in 5 years to take on at one time. But we now can make informed decisions, not district by district, not as something breaks and then we have to shut it down. But now we can start to say, hey, we can all agree as a council, as a city, that we've had someone come in and say, our problem number one is this building, problem number two is this park, et cetera. So I've had that, as we reallocated some ARPA funding, I've set $100,000 aside and pending approval in council in May to get that deferred maintenance strategy going. So that's what I've been focused on. As far as any other study to that, there's been conversations about a parks master plan, visionary wise about, and I would support that, but I think there's a lot of things that we need to get done first before we take on the behemoth that would be a parks master plan. And that parks master plan will only be as good as the other data we have for it. And so we've been very meticulous about making sure that we order this in the right way, that we get this smaller study done about what our maintenance needs are, what our repair needs are, and then that will help feed and illustrate a larger parks master plan.
What are your expectations for delivery date on that report?
I'd have to see. It's too early for me to say how long that would take. I would have to defer to whoever we would hire does it for a living, they'd be able to tell us what a reasonable time frame is. So, but I mean, if you want to talk philosophy, as soon as reasonable, we're as I said, we're trying to get out of this habit of major maintenance problems have found me. I'd like to find them, and so that I'm very, very urgent to get it done without putting someone on a deadline that might be unrealistic.
So on the subject of plans, I guess, is what's going to happen with parks? Is that also part of element of the strategic plan that's underway right now? Is that
Yeah.
would that be part of it, or
Are you talking about as it pertains to a Parks Master Plan, or just what?
Just in general, as a parks master plan, but isn't that would a master plan be informed by the city strategic plan that you're working on now?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another reverberating value from the strategic plan, is that it should feed more specific groups, whether it be urban planning, whether it be the land development code. That would be another one. That citywide strategic plan, even though we're in the audit now, when it's time to go for a full-blown overhaul or reform, certainly, I mean, I think we'd be remiss not to be taking what the citywide strategic plan is, what we all want as a community, and then seeing what those pieces are. And I've looked at that since before I started this job. I've looked at that citywide strategic plan as this a guiding document of what we want the city to be. And sometimes, we do have a habit here of having plans and collecting dust, and we talk about that a lot at the city, and I think in some cases it was accurate, and some maybe a little misleading. But I think in this case, what we really want is not, when I think about a visionary strategic plan, it's not a 97-step tactical plan that a hurricane throws into, or that COVID throws into the wash, right? It's kind of like, what do we want the city to be? And it focused on these specific things. And then what we hope is implementation, which is what we all really want, not collecting dust. Implementation becomes easier because then now a parks master plan is guided by what we've all agreed as a community we want as a city. And so it should be that umbrella, I think, of not that it has its own 100-step process, but that it's got here's what our community has said we want to see in the next 10 years. How are we going to get there? Well, we're going to do it through X, Y, and Z. And then we allow those other reports, other departments to kind of feed off of that. So I'm glad to get that. I know we've had a great first start to that strategic plan, and that'll be done sometime in the fall, sometime by the end of this year, that strategic plan coming back to us, the citywide. Yeah.
Mayor, at the CRA meeting last week on the Community Land Trust,
Mm-hmm.
You now entered into a 30-day period,
Mm-hmm.
public comment. Is that, what is the 30 exactly?
Yeah. So
And why is it required to have it? Is it to gather more data? Is it to give other community land trust operators an opportunity to participate?
Yeah, it's a state. I'm going to say statute. I assume statute, but it's a state rule ultimately that when we dispose of any property in any way, let's use a different example. If we took that exact same piece of property and we just said we were going to sell it, then that was it. Still goes through the same process. So there's at least 30-day disposition period that we notify the public to say, hey, we're doing something with this property. You can write us, you can email us, you can offer on something, you can do whatever you'd like. But and I agree with that rule. It makes sense, that hey, you don't want city government or county government or whatever to not have the public be notified at all if they were wanting to dispose of something. So we'll have to go through that same process at Motor Lodge, at Main Street, at 925 East Jackson. If we do community land trust there, we'll have to do the same process at all of those, which is just required by the statute. So, obviously we have a strategy in place of the letters of intent, and we're going to be giving credence to those letters of intent. But nothing stops anyone during that 30 days to, the city's not obligated to anything yet as it pertains to a letter of intent, and vice versa. And so that's all that process is. And so you'll see this process play out a couple more times probably in the coming months.
So if other operators like Habitat, who are experienced in land trust in the state, if they were to come forward now and say, we want to participate?
Sure. I mean, nothing stops. The letter of interest process, there's nothing binding about it. So if we had gotten 15 letters of interest, we can move forward and negotiate with all 15 at that point, and at this point in the process. So we're not obligated. The city's not obligated to anything, and certainly anybody with a letter of interest isn't obligated to anything yet. Why this exists is ultimately to ensure that the public is aware that the city is disposing potentially of an asset that they have. That's what it's about. That doesn't mean we have to sell it. Doesn't mean we can do whatever we want with it. But we have to have that period where we allow the public to know that this is something that we're moving on from in some way.
Also, on that subject, CRA identified 3 properties council approved. And the Spring Street property didn't have a street address. Can you tell
Well, I
us
hope we can
what-
find it. I'm sure we can get that. We can get that address for you. But I'm very, very excited about that direction, and this really being that first pilot of, as I told the council or the CRA at the time, that don't let it go past you today. That ultimately, you put the first 3 lots in the inventory that will be affordable forever. There's a lot of polarization around the topic of housing and affordable housing, I would say, as a community. I don't know that we do a real good job of defining we all have different definitions of what it is. We had a great conversation, actually. I was part of that group in with the strategic plan meeting, when, just talking about how that means something different to so many people. What affordable means, what attainable means, what market rate means, all of that. And I think that's why this is sometimes a difficult topic to tackle, is because the ball's moving all the time about how we define what it is. And so what I like about the Community Land Trust is what can't be debated is that if it stays in an affordable pool based on an income metric for 99 years, how can you debate that that's going to be something that's a positive step for attainable housing? So as people like to stereotype what I want to do or not do with housing, I've heard every version of what I'm going to do. The nice part is what's actually on paper and what's in writing is we're going to keep houses affordable for 100 years. And so I'm very, very much looking forward to that project and potentially more partnerships on land trusts where we can start to not have something started in an affordable pool and then leave it because we don't have the teeth to be able to keep it in there. So I love that process and procedure, and excited to get those houses going. We'll get that address for you then.
Mayor, today code enforcement is dealing with issues on the abandoned Trailways bus station.
Mm-hmm.
And we understand the historic significance behind it, why
Sure.
people want to save it. But we wondered, when does the blight and neglect outweigh the significance of that, and selling it to save it becomes essentially impossible?
Yeah, well, I can speak to obviously the Trailways issue, came up a year ago. Typically in these types of situations, you have 2-3 weeks to rectify. I think I would say we've been more than fair as it pertains to taking some version of action based on what had been discussed previously, and I guess that's what the magistrate and code will be talking about with the owners now. At the end of the day, what we have to deal with is when we talk about a historic building is to your question, if blight is self-inflicted, then how is that might be a different scenario than if someone maybe bought it a year ago or maybe didn't realize or something like that. And if you've owned it for almost 40 years and it's blighted, and then the argument to knock it down is because it was blighted, you can understand there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Is ultimately what you're saying is just don't take care of the historic building, and then eventually you'll get your way. At the end of the day, I'm not a historic expert. We've got people here that look at that, but the code enforcement's there for I would say number one, and I think Ryan would tell you, is for safety reasons. And we've got people using it, people parking under something that's an unsafe structure right now, in its current form, and so. It's less about the debate of historic or not, or should you private property rights or not. At the end of the day, what we're saying is we got a safety issue on this building. We've notified that for a year, and we want something to be done about it. So that's where we are, I think, as we sit today. But it's a bigger conversation, for the community. Is, are you allowed to deem something unhistoric by blight, by self-inflicted blight? And I think that's the discussion that we have to understand, and there's a big difference between that and, let's give a city example. If we were to close on Gibson School as an example, and we've got some concerns structurally about whether that's gonna make sense for us or not, would that be self-inflicted blight, or would that be us trying to come in and save a building? So intent does matter, and so we'll see how that plays out. We want a positive solution for the property owner. We want a positive solution for the city, and we want a positive solution for the history of the city too. So we'll see how it plays out, and certainly we're not trying to play gotcha on anything. We just want everyone to do what they say they're going to do and own up to those obligations, and we'll see what happens.
The governor was in town yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and he talked about getting an owner's rep for Baptist Hospital. I guess, do you have any sense of how that state funding stands, if it will be vetoed or not?
I think we're in constant contact with our representatives over there, and to stay on top of that and make sure that we aren't sleeping one night and priorities change. So we feel good about where we are on all three of those major things: the airport for 5, the Baptist for 7, and the Bay Bluffs. I'm really excited about. Hopefully that gets through with Conservation Florida and us at 2.2. So. It's our job to we don't control the end result, but it's our job to stay on top of it. And I would say we feel pretty good, right now about it. But hey, I've seen crazier things, and so we're not going to go overinvest or make any presumptions about anything yet. We're gonna let this play out, and then you can ask me at 12:01 a.m. on July 1st, or maybe July 2nd, I guess. And I'll let you know exactly how I feel, but I would say generally we feel pretty good about it. Anything else? All right, thanks, guys.